It's a sales trick.
It's a sales
that
trick.
Robert Lopez invented. Everybody can.
And it was a big one. It was like $8.7 million. There was nothing. Screw this place. This place doesn't get it.
I need to hire this guy. Probably can't afford him.
He's way too expensive. It's so much further ahead than the United States. It's unbelievable. I did $20 million in solar.
You've obviously never been to China.
Yeah.
First of all, number one. Love that.
Yeah, me too. I love it, dude. How many houses I've done for no charge? It's insane. And anyone that looks like you and hangs out with those girls is going to be a fantastic salesperson. So you're saying I'm ugly?
Welcome to the Medium Voltage Experts Podcast. I am Mario de Alba, your host. I'm also the CEO and co-founder of Electric App Inc. or electricapp.com. We consider ourselves at Electric App the medium voltage easy button. We think we're experts in medium voltage. And it's not just because of everything we know, but because of the network and the people that we know in the industry. I've decided to interview some of these experts. So join me in getting to know these bright minds and have fun. Okay, subscribe. All right, well, Mr. Lopez, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming to Utah. This is exciting.
Yeah, glad to be here. Beautiful day today. 80 degrees. Can't beat it.
Yeah. So you've been to Utah many times. You were telling me
many
last time.
times. Yeah, I was here in the Wesco days when I wrote the Varango and the Vivint National EBOS contracts 15 years ago.
15 years. Is Wesco where you started?
So I started at Platt Electric and then went to Wesco from there.
Sick. And how many years ago was that?
I've been in the electrical industry since college. I was recruited into the space. So it's been 30 years in the total.
So 30 years since you were recruited.
Yes.
And how did they find you? Who was the person that found you? It was like, hey, you look like you want to sell some wire nuts.
So a crazy story. So my senior year in college, I was renting a house with 3 other roommates, and our neighbor next door, he would come to our parties and we'd have live bands. And he was about 15 years older than us. He was always the old guy at the party, but he partied, went to Texas A&M. And all I knew is he was a manager of a company, didn't know where he worked. And so I was getting ready to graduate, put together my resume, and I knocked on his door and I said, hey, Randy, would you mind looking at my resume? And he's like, yeah. It's like 2 weeks go by and I call him. I'm like, Randy, can you give me some feedback? And he's like, why don't you come to my office tomorrow and let's discuss it? And so I met with him at his office. Lo and behold, I pull up, it's Platt Electric.
Okay.
And he was manager of the Rancho Cordova office there. And we talked for like 2 hours. And at the end of the conversation, he went into Platt organization and how they have BASE, which is a branch accredited certification education, and then they have PACE, which is Platt's accredited certificate education. It's a 2-year program that they have, and that he would kind of mentor me through that program if I came aboard. Well, so at the end he makes me an offer, and I get ready to leave, and he's like, hey, do you want to know why I want to hire you? And I was like, I was young, it was like literally the first job interview I had. And he's like, because I've been to your parties and I've seen the girls you hang out with, and anyone that looks like you and hangs out with those girls is going to be a fantastic salesperson. And I was like, so you're saying I'm ugly? And that's kind of how I'm here today. It's kind of just been a crazy ride, man.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Your God-given talents to pull in the girls got you into sales.
Yeah, I mean, the ironic part is when I went to the PACE program, and I think I was telling your guy earlier, they took 11 of us, and we had to say day one if we were going to management or sales, and I was the only person that said sales in my whole class. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time, and you are a spectacular salesman. What are, and then maybe even a better marketer. Like you are an incredible marketer too. What are some of those sales things that you learned during that program? What did it shape you? Where did you learn the most?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, I look back on it is, I've read all of the Stephen Covey's. I've been to, sales seminars and been through the BASE program, the PACE program, and I've done a lot of this. I read a lot of books too, and I think what it is more than anything else, it's just it's the appetite for continual learning for me. I have this thirst of always wanting to push myself to be better and to kind of know whatever market I'm in to what it looks like in the next 5-10 years. Yeah. And so I can plan accordingly, where most people just plan for the next day. And I think that's what really has separated me in my career is that ability to kind of foresee what's coming And, in the downside of that is when you're in sales, it's a great attribute. But what I learned when you get into management, it's a really, really tough attribute, especially when you work for a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So when you went to Platt, it was like, what, 1995?
It was, 95, 96.
Okay.
Right around there.
So you go to Platt, you do the PACE program.
Base program first.
Base.
And
okay.
then the PACE program, yes.
How long until you go to the next thing? And what was the next thing?
Yeah, so great question. So when you graduate from the PACE program, you're automatically put into a program where your hyper growth promotion rate, right?
Okay.
So at the time, I had started at the counter sales. I had moved up, doing some management stuff, like assistant management stuff, learned inventory management. And then I became an inside salesperson through that 2 years of going through that program. And at the time, I was the inside sales support for the #1 salesperson in the country for Platt Electric.
Okay.
In the country.
At Rancho Cordova.
At Rancho Cordova.
Cool.
Yeah. And she was a beast. And I learned a ton from her too, but I also learned a ton of not what to do too.
Yeah. Okay.
and so there was pressure on the manager to promote me. And I wanted to go into sales, outside sales, right? That was my goal. And so he kept getting calls from corporate. I kept saying, hey, I want to go out. And the problem is in distribution, the #1 hardest position to backfill is inside sales.
Yeah.
The #1.
I agree with that.
Especially if you have a good one, which
yes.
I've only, in my career, I've probably seen 3 or 4 what I consider good ones. They're very difficult to find. Very difficult.
Yeah.
So 2 years goes by, I'm still inside sales. Right.
So this is like 99.
Yeah.
You're
and
still
so that's when I took the first phone call from Wesco.
Okay.
And they said, hey, we want to hire you outside sales starting right away.
Is this the same, right around the same area?
Yes.
Rancho?
That was the Sacramento branch for Wesco at the time.
Okay.
And at the time, I felt like I was indebted. I mean, they spent money on me. Kind of the Platt family that they call it, right?
Well, when did Platt get acquired by
It was way after I was gone.
Way after.
Yeah,
okay.
way after I was gone. So then I said, no, I turned them down the first time.
Wesco.
And another year goes by, and and the manager's like, listen, Rob, I can't play. I mean, we have the largest branch in Platt. You're servicing the customers. They love you. I can't. And so I had this conversation with myself, and this was literally the same year I was getting married too. And where I said, okay, I have to do what's best for me. Yeah. Because there's really nobody here is looking out for me. They're just looking out for their bottom line. Yeah. Right. And so Wesco had called me again, and this time I took the position. And
was Wesco at the time, just like now, the largest distributor?
Wesco at the time was
they had an acquired.
I think Graybar was larger at that time.
Okay.
And then Wesco eventually overtook them, but I think Graybar was larger at that time.
Cool.
But it was like, when I look back at my friends, like, what was the difference going from Platt to Wesco? It was literally like going from the farm leagues to the major leagues. Yeah. I mean, literally. I mean, everything was different. Like the acumen for business, the goals to get to, the size of the orders, the abilities to add value to customers. It was just a different ballgame.
Yeah. And then, so it was around 2000, 2001. You go to Wesco. Mm-hmm. It's an outside position?
Yeah. So when I went there, I wanted to learn Wesco first. Mm-hmm. So I asked them what they can do for me for a few months to learn Wesco. So they put me in the quotations. So I was that's where I learned power and lighting quotations. So they had a power and lighting quotations person. So I worked hand in hand with the outside salespeople, learned the Wesco system. So I did that for about 6 months, and then I went outside sales. And so I did. So at Wesco at the time, they had a base plus draw commission structure.
What does draw mean?
Draw means they give you, say, like, I don't know, $4,000 a month, and then if your commissions exceed that $4,000 a month, then you get the difference. But if they don't, they pull it back.
Kind of like on target. That's what we called it at 3.
You call it, yes. Yeah, that's what they call it here, the draw system.
Cool.
And so their big boy commission plan was at the time was 100% straight commission sales plan, right?
And what percentage was that of your sales?
It was 18% of the gross margin.
Of gross margin.
Gross margin. And so when I heard that, I was instantly, okay, that's my goal. Yeah. Right. And so, fast forward, it takes, there was at the time, I think there was maybe 5 or 6 people in the country on that plan. And you also got to remember too, when I went outside sales, what I have seen through my career is when we hire people outside, we give them an account base. Mm-hmm. I was never given an account base.
At Wesco, never.
I was told, okay, we had two people there. One was calling on the state and one of the OEM. The other one was calling on, whoever else. And there was a big market, and they said, go find customers. And so fast forward 1 year in outside sales, I was doing enough in GM to qualify for the 18% plan.
Nice.
And that was one of the scariest moments in my career looking back, because it was literally that feeling of like standing on a 300-foot ledge and looking over. I mean, you're talking, there's no draw, there's no car allowance, there's no phone allowance, there's no expenses for customers. It is all you. And I had just gotten married and trying to start a family. I'm like, am I just the craziest person on earth or what? And, looking back, it was the best decision I ever made. Dude. Financially, obviously. It was a great decision. I mean, I was able to do things and kind of build a nice little wealth egg at a young age, which was awesome. And it met some great customers along the way.
I was going to say, so they didn't give you an account base, so you had to go out and find those accounts?
I had to find them. I had to set up credit. I had to set up terms. I had to align our product base with what they were buying. I mean, it was a big deal.
You're running like a branch on your own.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it was kind of similar to, we'll get into it, but how I started the renewables division at Wesco and Graybar. I mean, it's an organic growth business model within a large Fortune 500 organization.
At Plaid, as an inside salesman, was it just straight salary or?
Yeah, good question. So when I started there, it was straight salary, and then they eventually gave me salary plus 2% of gross margin, which at the time 2% was a lot for an inside salesperson. Yeah, it was a lot.
What as an inside sales, while you were at Plaid, were you just like a jack of all trades? You just had to go and find wire and conduit and anything
from an inside salesperson?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I would get a bill of material from a customer, or I'll give you a perfect example of something that I still think about to this day. I mean, I was an inside salesperson, and someone brought into a counter a concrete piece off a concrete pole that someone had backed over, and they had thrown away, and all they had was this piece of aggregate.
Oh my gosh.
And the counter guy brought it to me, and I found the pole based on the aggregate.
That's wild.
Piece that they had, because they had to match the existing. I mean, and back then, you remember, Mario, there is no internet. We're going through catalogs.
Yep.
And
I remember.
And we had walls of catalogs, and I'm just pulling out, all of the concrete poles, and I'm matching it. I'm calling them. I'm does it have this pigment? I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
So you go Plaid inside, Wesco outside.
Yep.
You get a taste of the honey, full commission.
Yep.
How long until they come and say, hey, renewables? Or how did that all come about? I mean, that must be a crazy story.
It is a great story. So, so in 2007, I'm humming along. I'm making President's Club every single year. Mm-hmm. I've made, I think, 16 or 17 President's Clubs in my career.
Cool.
And at that time, I had self-taught myself to be a switchgear specialist, which to this day is kind of a passion of mine. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know that about me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I self-taught myself the Eaton Bidman software platform. And because what would happen, I would go to these customers, and we could be in the plan rooms, and they're scanning off all these e-sheets. And I'm like, why are we scanning these e-sheets? Why can't we just bring a laptop with an air card, which for you probably sounds foreign, really, not really, but you probably remember what an air card is, and just do the estimate right there in office and email them the quote right there. Mm-hmm. And so I just said, I'm going to figure this out. And so I literally went to the Eaton office, sat over the shoulder of some of the account managers, and I'd say within 6 months solid, I learned it at a super, super high level where I became super valuable to the design build contractors in the Sacramento Valley.
Cool.
And I was writing everything I wanted. And then I leveraged that into writing the lighting stuff, because the lighting orders were quoted direct, and it was up to the contractor to make a decision on what distributor they wanted to run it through. So I would say, hey, listen, if I'm going to quote you switchgear, I want the lighting too. And so I had a run there where it almost became easy, I would say, for me, where you know, a lot of people struggled in outside sales. And, you know, I remember when I was at Wesco, I still have it on my desk at home. I have 10 business cards of 10 different people who I shared my office with, outside sales, who never made it. And it's kind of like that reminder of me, like, because I always think of like, why me? I'm not special. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm not the sharpest. I don't, but I think that I know just enough about everything. I'm just curious enough that I'm so determined enough, and I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah,
right.
It's funny because I was talking with Zuleika. You just met her.
Yeah,
and I was like, Zuleika, do you want to know what's gonna make you from good to great in this industry? Is when you grab those catalogs from when we do medium voltage.
Yeah.
And you put them in your bathroom.
Yeah.
And that's what you read while you're in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And you become an expert. No. And you're the person that when they think, I need an expert, they think Zuleika.
No,
it's like you with the switch gear.
Yeah.
They thought, I need an expert.
Yeah.
And then you're there.
I mean, you know, that's a perfect thing. They say that your superpower is what you do when others aren't looking.
Yeah.
And it's the truth.
They're not looking
because people don't know the times I spent at night reading,
for sure,
and learning, and the weekends, and that, you know, and then when I got into management, I was telling people that when you tell people that what you did, they think it's foreign. They're like, well, I'm not getting paid to do that.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's the difference between good and great.
Yep.
Right. What do you want to be? And you want to be someone that's getting to sit here across from you today and have some good expert analysis, or do you want to be someone that's just a regular person, right? Yeah. And so I just, you know, I chose a different route. You know, I wanted to, and again, it goes back to, I'm not the smartest guy, Mario. I mean, you know, you're building a quite successful company here when you've got a lot of bright people around you, you know.
You're pretty dang smart, for sure. Okay,
that's 30 years of smart, right?
So get into how they come and tap you on the shoulder.
Yeah.
And let's go do this weird renewable thing that is just popping up probably in late 2000s.
Yeah, so what happened in 2007, right before the 2008 collapse, with one of my design build customers. And he says, Rob, he's like, the design build seems like it's slowing down. And we were on this run. Yeah. I mean, the early 2000s was nuts. And he says, and he was someone like me. And to this day, where I would count him as probably, I have 4 personal best friends, and he's one of them. He was a customer. We started as a customer. And he said, I think we need to look at getting into something else, Rob. I think something big's coming. And he called it. I'll never forget this, man. And then he brought in a solar magazine, and because we would have dinner every Thursday night. And at the time, Solar Depot was the only distributor in America. And they were in Humboldt County, which was, you know, only an hour and a half from our house. Mm-hmm. So we registered for their classes. And I'll never forget this, Mario. Me and him show up, and we're clean-cut electrical guys, right? And they're all hippies. They're all long hair, gray-haired. I mean, a whole class of them and us. And what they were doing, they were just learning how to put together solar for their farms.
That's cool.
Their cannabis farms up there, right? Yeah. I mean, nobody was wanting to learn it to go sell it on a house or a building or whatever, right? Yeah. And it's so funny, I look back now at how few manufacturers were back then to how many are today. Yeah. It's nuts, right? And so, so we took the classes, and then I re-enrolled at Sac State and took a couple more renewable energy classes. So did he. We did night classes. Again, 100% straight commission, all on my own time, doing this, right? And then 2008 came, boom.
Yeah.
Right? And if you remember, the administration put out renewable energy monies, right? And so me and him spent all day reading all about it. And there was a handful of projects that were getting bid in the California Central Valley area. And so I'll never forget the first project we bid. There was a team of 6 of us from his place. We worked all night, literally, from like, I would say 3 in the afternoon till 6 in the morning, putting together this bid. And we, when we submitted it, there was a plumbing company that submitted one. There was us, and there was like this steel fabricator. It was like 3 bids, but because people were hurting for business, they were like, "This is the only thing available."
Yeah.
So, and at the time,
so this is you and your buddy? Or?
Yeah, me and my buddy, the contractor buddy.
Okay. And is this like separate to Wesco, or
no? This is why I was at Wesco, but
at Wesco.
Yeah. So, but you got to remember, at the time, Wesco wouldn't open up nobody.
Yeah.
Okay. But I told myself after years of experience that if I brought in an order, and it had margin, I'm going to get open. And so the term was get it in the boat.
Yeah.
Right. So long story short, we got it in the boat. Okay. And it was a big one. It was like $8.7 million. And then in 2008 terms, when there was nothing, that was a big deal. And I'll never forget, I bypassed my manager. I went straight to the VP. I called him up, Jeff, and he's like, I still remember the call. He's like, what are you calling me for? And I was like, I need you to, it was called an 888 back then at Wesco. It was like where the VP could instantly sign on a manufacturer.
Okay.
Without background checks or nothing. And I told him, gave him all the information. He's like, send it to me, I'll approve it. I was like, what? And we were in the business. I was the first person, first person in the country to sell solar. First deal, 2008. Large. It was 3 apartment buildings, is what it was.
Wow.
In Monterey, California.
In Monterey.
Yep. Never forget it. We used Solon modules. We used.
So when you go and play Pebble, you still see the apartment complex?
Well, I grew up in Monterey too, so it's kind of like a great thing. You know, I went to high school there.
That's cool.
But yeah, so I mean, it pops up on my Facebook every year, and so I'm always resharing it. It's pretty cool.
That's cool. That's awesome. Okay, so you start renewables at Wesco. What happens next? Okay, you get this $8 million order.
Yeah. So I have no inside support. Remember, I process all the orders myself, right? Because you got to remember, it's modules, racking inverters, 3 orders, and then the BOS, which is what I was doing anyways, pretty standard stuff. And so that first year, I did $20 million in solar.
Okay.
20 million. I mean, that was a big number in 2008.
It's still a big number.
Right. And Q1 of 2009, the CFO for Wesco flew out to meet me personally in that little branch in Sacramento. Never forget this.
Cool.
This tall, skinny, white-haired guy. And I was nervous. I'm like, why? And I'm asking my manager doesn't even know why he's coming. He's like, he says he's coming to meet you. And he's like, hey, because so back then, I don't know what it is now, Wesco had their business kind of go to market with their employees was they expected to get at least $1 million per employee. That was kind of the thing, right? So here I am creating 20 million, one person, right? And so he comes to me, he's like, hey, I need to find out how you're doing this, right? And which I appreciated him. He flew out from Pennsylvania to ask me these questions, and then all of a sudden I got motivated because I was like, hey, Steve, we got to do this and we got to do this, and we're the first ones. At the time there was no CED Green Tech. I was the first one in. There was nobody else, right? And I said, and I gave him kind of this whole strategy that I had built, and we got to do it. And he says, I'll never forget this. There's a few things in my life that have been just like great things that people have told me. And this is another one he said that kind of motivated me, and then it's also brought me back full circle. He says, sometimes, Robert, it's better to be a slow second than a fast first. And I never forgot that. And actually, it's probably something that you should hear too, Mario, because it's true. Because when you're starting a startup, you want to be fast, right? But what he meant by that is that Wesco is a big company, and he wants others to fail first and make the mistakes before he goes all in. At the time, I was young, and I didn't get that second part. I was upset. Matter of fact, I was so upset, I packed my stuff when he left, and I went home. I was like, screw this place. This place doesn't get it. I was like, this is the future. We got to go all in. This is our time. And so anyway, so the next year goes. I think I wrote 40 million in 2010. Jeez. And then they asked me to put together a strategy go-to-market for the district for a big district meeting in that Q1 of that following year. And I put together, and I'll never forget going through the slide deck, and I hit the last enter, and it was like this poof of smoke, and it says 100 million. And I'll never forget this, Mario. All the managers laughed at me. They all laughed at me to this day. And I was like, really, guys? Like, because all they knew is electrical, right? Well, I knew electrical and solar, right? And so Q2 comes, and my VP came to me, and he said, Rob, we want to, because he used to call me Lopez Solar back then. And he's like, I need you to bring you in as a manager, and I need you to start a bunch of Wesco Solars across the country, right? So basically build a team.
Yeah.
And so at that time, Solagent I had thought was a big player. I later learned that they weren't as big a player as I had thought at that time. But I had met them at certain events, company events, module events and stuff like that. And we had started a small team. We probably had 4 or 5, maybe 6 people across the country then. Well, they approached me. I think it was their sales manager approached me, and he says, hey, my whole team wants to come work for you.
Wow.
come work for Wesco. And so I took Jeff the opportunity, and to Wesco's credit, they hired all of them.
Amazing.
They hired all of them. And that was, that was, I don't know what year that was. That was probably, 2012, 13, somewhere around there. I don't really recall exactly what that was, but that was kind of like that was the change, right? That was where, they came from Zoljan where there was mostly residential, and I was doing a lot of commercial and some residential, because I've always been the guy that push, okay, residential is cool, but it's not that cool. Let's go into commercial. It's harder. And then, like today I'm in the utility space. Yeah,
because utility up until 15, 16, it was all wind.
It was.
Right?
Yeah.
Were you doing any wind at the time?
No wind at the time. We were just basically doing the core components in EBOS. That's what I called it.
Okay.
And so so what came then in at Wesco, when it came to from when I moved on, which I thought I was going to be there forever, I was there for 17 years, and to this day, I mean, the final kicker for me was when they decided to cap my commission.
Ooh.
And to this day,
it's a cardinal sin.
I've talked to many people in distribution, and I still have not met another person that has been capped on their commissions ever. And so, and believe it or not, Mario, because I'm such a loyal person, when they first capped me, I stayed for another 3 years. And then it just became like, you want me to motivate this team. You want me to write strategy. You want me to maintain all these vendor relationships. You want me to build margin, grow the business, and then you don't want to take care of me. It's like, what are we doing here? Right. And my good friend, probably one of my best friends, he's a CEO of at the time a large company, and he was he's been my mentor for over 30 years, and so I'd always bounce these things out. Matter of fact, the first time it happened, he said, "Rob, I should leave." And I wait, and I said, "No, I can't. I got to stay on." And then he's like, "Okay, give it another year, blow it out. They got to reinstate you." They didn't. Only thing I kept getting was President's Club, but still, it was like, come on, guys. Like,
where would they take you guys for President's Club?
Oh my God, dude.
Where'd you guys go?
Everywhere. Maui. We did Cancun.
Cool.
They've done Europe, Australia. I mean, I've been to some amazing spots.
That's awesome.
I mean, Greece.
Oh, I love Greece. So cool.
The islands of Greece, and I mean,
very cool.
Some great places. And the cool thing about President's Club, just to kind of finish on that, is President's Club is it's that one thing when you work for corporate America that it when you're there and you're amongst peers that have grinded as like you have, the conversations you have there are different than your daily conversations in your life. And so that week and a half that you spend with those people is utterly amazing. It really is, man. It's and if you've never been on one, man, if you want to institute one, it's another level. It really is. And even at Gray Bar, their program's even, I would say, even higher elite and tougher to make than Wesco's was, and because they take fewer people. And that one, and then they have like a President's Club 2.0, which is another trip that you can go with the CEO, which is even smaller, which is after the first trip.
Cool.
I mean, it's crazy.
That's
right?
cool.
Yeah.
No, when I was at 3M, I never made it. I think the year I was going to make is the year I left.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was leading the chart, and it was time to move on.
Yeah. Well, both years when I left Wesco and Gray, where I was supposed to go on each one of those. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's, we'll get into it, but it's, I thought it was because my dad, remember, I didn't tell you history of my dad, but my dad worked for two companies his whole life. So that's kind of was raised.
What did he do?
Be loyal. So my dad worked for a concrete company. Mm-hmm. He started out, had a moving company. His dad had a moving company, so he worked for his dad. Then he worked at a concrete company, and then he ultimately worked for Albertson's Grocery.
Oh, yeah, I know.
In a produce warehouse for years. So he's a teamster. So he's, kind of one of those guys, right? Yeah. So, I mean, my dad always taught me that, you do what's right, you climb the corporate ladder. And so that's kind of my generation, I think, comes from that, where and so like my buddy who's the CEO, he's from that cloth too. And, what you learn is that there's a lot of politics that go on in corporate America. And, if you don't fit that mold, then, or if you're hyper productive, they keep you there because there's no reason to move you because you're making a lot of people a lot of money. Right. And that's kind of like the one thing that's not talked about in the business, but it's very true.
Yeah.
I've seen it firsthand many times.
Yeah. Lately, I've seen a few inside salesmen that are incredible move on companies because another company offered them an outside.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to go outside. And then some of them find out it's not even all that great.
It's funny you brought that up. I've seen a lot of great inside salespeople who thought they can go outside sales and they fail.
Yeah.
It's tougher than you think. It's a different mentality.
So you said it's harder to find a good inside than great outsides.
Yep.
Why do outside get usually paid more?
Yeah, that's a great question. I look at the outside salespeople, and this is, you gotta remember, this is through the distribution eye. And when I was an outside salesperson, I always tripped on, like, I'd have vendors call me, like Hubble calling me, 3M, all these, Kraus Heinz, and they knew a lot about their product, right? And I was always impressed, like how much they knew. And then I looked at myself and I got to know yours, theirs, over theirs. I got to know a lot about a lot is what I used to tell myself, right? And so being a distribution salesperson, especially being a high level one, is very difficult. And you don't think that in the first probably 5, maybe even 10 years of doing it, but later on, when you look back, you're like, wow, man, it's a lot of information that you have to take in and you have to know at a high level because the contractors are basically you're their guy, right? And so that, like I said, it kind of goes back to constantly learning and understanding it and being that person. But I was always in my younger career, like, what would it be like to be a Hubble rep or be a 3M rep? I bet you that job's so much easier, And it's funny because now that I work for Washington Cable, I just got to know a lot about cable. And to be honest with you, in a lot of ways, it's easier.
I would agree.
A lot of ways, it is.
Manufacturer one is a lot easier.
I'm just dealing with purchase orders. I have another couple of zeros, right? So, it's different, right? And the sales cycle's longer. There's a lot more, certifications and quality reports and audits and stuff like that. But it's not that everyday transactional business that goes on in distribution.
Yep. So 2 more minutes on your career.
Yeah.
So you crush it, West Coast, 17 years, you go do renewables. People are paying attention, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Is that how Graybar found you, or did you go to the solar company first?
Yeah, actually, I went to Sunworks first. So they were my number one customer. They had just gone public, asked me to come on as their senior vice president. And the biggest reason they wanted me is because nobody knew how to run a public company, and they were public. And I had been working for a public company, so I knew kind of that corporate structure. Mm-hmm. And what I found was I was the guy that for that 3 years, right? I would tell them, okay, you can do this, you can't do this, and it was fun because it was kind of that startup mentality still, and they were still kind of constructing the ship as they were building it in a lot of ways, and they had great people there at the time. And I had always wanted to be on the customer side to kind of see what the value was of distribution and how they were viewed, and then what pitfalls they go through. And believe it or not, contractor business is similar to a distribution business. It mirrors it in a lot of different ways.
Like what?
Just cash flow, inventory, on-time deliveries, project deadlines. They kind of, a lot of it mirrors distribution, especially when we're running a project. Yeah. It's the same thing, right? But you learn I would say more so the importance and more so of like when you miss a deadline from a distributor of how it affects the customer.
Yeah.
Right? Because not only is it just downtime, it's lost time. Right? And so it's a double whammy. And I got to learn that firsthand. So it was a great learning experience on that side. And then, but at the time, I was getting told by a lot of people who especially saw me kind of grow Wesco Renewables from nothing, that say, oh man, you got lucky that time. And then when Graybar called, I'm like, okay, here's my chance to kind of go back in distribution. And then if I do it again, no one can say it was luck. Mm-hmm. And so that was, like I said, everything I'm driven by is challenge. And so that was the challenge I put in my head. Mm-hmm. Was that, okay, first time luck, I get it. Entrepreneurs have a startup, they get bought out, first time luck, right? Whatever, it happens, right? But if I do it a second time, what are they going to say? Yeah. And to this day, I mean, in 30 years, I've never seen another vertical within a Fortune 500 distributor start from zero and become a full-fledged vertical within that company without an acquisition. I have never seen it, because all of these distributors, the way they grow into verticals is through acquisition, typically.
Right. Yep.
Right. So you just don't see it. Right. So that's something that I'm quite proud of. Yeah. And you know, I think that a lot of people have that I've hired and have. I mean, I mentor still people that I've hired. I mean,
so this is 2020
of what going
when you go to Gray Bar from Sunworks.
It was see, I was at Gray Bar for 6 years.
Okay, so 2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
18, I went there, and then and so
so that's like when solar is really picking up.
It was really ripping, and at that time, you know, I looked at the whole distribution go-to-market strategy. You know, green tech was killing it in residential, but nobody was really focused 100% on commercial at that time. People were kind of dabbling in it and taking orders here and there. And so the business plan I wrote for Gray Bar was we were 100% into commercial, 100%.
So not utility.
Not utility initially, but we did eventually get into the
But
utility
you're like,
portion.
we're not going to go do the roof solar with Vivint.
No.
That's the Wesco.
Yeah, they can have that.
Okay.
They can have that business.
We're going to go after Albertsons.
Yeah,
and their
we're going to go Costco's and Targets and you know, the Sam's Clubs and
high schools. Where you guys doing?
High schools, and we were doing VA buildings, VA hospitals, parking structures. We'd done the San Jose Airport parking structure. So I mean, we were focused on the commercial portion of the business, and then about probably 3 years into that plan is when I brought in the utility piece.
Yeah, and probably your clients were starting to move that way too.
Yeah, I mean, the commercial business was still good, but I mean, you know, changes in legislation and you know, kilowatt rates, and then batteries were coming in, right? And you know, now batteries are coming so far down in price; they're getting more and more used. But
okay, you are the infamous person, I believe, that brought the whole 20-year warranty.
Yeah.
BS.
Yeah. BS.
And I say BS because, okay, so it fails 20 years from now.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to be around.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we deal with that constantly. Like 3M, TE, give these outrageous warranties.
Yeah, they give them long
20, 30 years. And I was talking with Tim the other day. He's like, oh, that was Robert.
Yeah.
Who put that all together, put those thoughts in their minds.
I called it the Boss 20. Actually, I convinced 3M and Panduit. And Burndy had never officially signed off on it, but 3M, Panduit, and I think were the two that were for sure onto a Boss 20 program.
How did that come about?
Yeah, so how it came about was, you know, you gotta remember my maturation from residential to commercial and utility, right? Yeah. And everything was based on a 25-year warranty, right? Yep. And so I was getting calls.
Which is cable, right?
Well, cable only has 1 year warranty.
1 year.
Well, 1 year. Our cable has a 2 year, but majority of cables have a 1 year. How it started was I got a call from a utility contractor, and he wanted a 20-year warranty on his transformer that we were selling. And I've been selling transformers for a long time, and they're 1 year. And so I went to the customer. I went back to the vendor, and he said, charge them double, and they can have a 20-year warranty.
Okay.
And the customer took it.
Wow.
Yeah, because the way they looked at it was that transformer theoretically in 20 years is going to be less cost than it is today. Although no one knew we would have COVID and hyperinflation like we've had. You know, who knows what the real percentage is, but it's probably a lot more today. Yeah. Right. And so I got in my head, I'm like, okay, well, maybe not transformers, you know, maybe not switchgear, but why not some of these items? Because you know, gotta remember, I've been in this business a long time, never seen, you know, big issues with medium voltage rubber goods. I've never seen big issues with fiberglass enclosures, grounding, right? And unless, because you can always go back to installation incorrectly, because 9 times out of 10,
more than 9, 99%,
exactly,
0.9,
yeah. But when I would get a call from a customer, there's a problem. Yeah, it was usually installed incorrectly,
for sure,
right? And it's not no fault of theirs. It's just that natural reaction that all of us have as human beings. We want to blame somebody else. Yeah, it's not us, not my team. Truth and reality is it probably was.
Probably was.
Right. And so that's the way I looked at it, was that, you write this really light warranty, right? Because really it's in the details, it's the warranty, right? And if we all know history is 99%, like you said, then what's your risk?
Yeah.
Really, right? And so that's kind of the way I came up with the Boss 20. And my head thought was, okay, if I wrapped all of these eBoss products into a Boss 20 platform, my thought was I would go sell it to the developer, not to the EPC, so that they would spec in the Boss 20 platform. That was my plan. That's awesome. 10 years ago.
It's awesome.
Right? And this is again, Mark, kind of goes back to thinking 5 or 10 years ahead of where this is heading.
3M bought in.
I know.
Hard.
They did.
They loved that.
Yep.
Because they knew.
Yeah, they
There's
knew.
No real failures.
No.
And when there is.
Yeah, like PVC. I've never seen PVC go bad, right? But to convince a company like Accor to put a 20-year warranty is tough because, they're a huge, huge company, right? And I understand it, Burndy was reluctant. They didn't want to give a 20-year warranty either. I get it.
It's wild that you convinced Fortune 500 companies to write extended warranties. That's nuts.
Yeah. But I think at the time, you got to remember, they were all late to the game. Mm-hmm. And when I brought it to them, they were like, okay, this is our chance to get in, right?
Put in.
Yep. Because they were literally, all the eBoss guys were late. All of them. Think about it. Look what Burndy did. Burndy bought Wiley. That's how they got in.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a wild story.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay, so we have you to blame for some of our conversations.
You can blame me. I'll take that one. I call it being innovative.
Yeah, very. Sales. 2 weeks ago, I'm on the phone with a project manager for a solar farm. I'm like, well, what about Hubble? What about Richards? Like, no, it's got to be 3M or TE. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, they're literally made basically in the same factory.
Yeah, they are.
And the guy's like, oh, it's the warranty programs we have in our quality management group will not take anything other than those two that give us 20, 30-year warranties.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so you're telling me in 30 years from now, the solar farm, it's probably going to be sold.
Bought and sold probably 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. And they're going to go find the one T-body that costed $300.
No.
Because of a 30-year warranty. Give me a break.
Exactly.
So, anyhow.
Just think about
it's how many of us, for me.
How many of us people even use warranties?
Makes no sense.
Yeah. It's a
sales trick.
It's a sales trick.
Robert Lopez invented. Everybody can.
Most people sell fear.
Yeah. You sell hope.
I sell hope. No, Obama ran on hope. Remember that?
Obama, that's right. That's pretty awesome. Oh my gosh, dude. Okay, so you go do it at Gray Bar.
Yep.
Are you at liberty to share where you started dollar-wise and where you grew it to by the time you left, or is that confidential?
Yeah, it's probably confidential now because I'm probably still within the time frame. But you can pretty much say it was as close to zero as possible. I can tell you that.
Okay.
And I will tell you that it was the fastest growing vertical in the company. I can say that
at Gray Bar, multi-billion-dollar.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Year over year, and it's on their hyper growth strategy plan. So yeah,
very, very cool. No, and Gray Bar, Wesco, they're all our customer. Platt, they're all our customers. So
it's great.
Really cool. Okay, so you go, and this is about a year and a half ago.
A year and
you give me a call.
Yeah.
I remember the day you called me and were like, making a move, Mario.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going. And actually, you were teasing me for about a month. You're like, I'm going somewhere else. I've been studying the market. I've been looking at things. You're like, I'm going to this cable company granted,
nobody heard of.
I've cataloged more cable in our database than most people have ever seen in their lifetime. So I know Prismium, General, Okanite, Southwire, LS, to some degree AWG or WTech, or you have, the Priorities or Omnis. Some of them, they don't make their own cable. King, Page. They don't make their own wire. So you have a lot of what I call brokers that act as brands.
Correct.
Not true brands like Southwire or Prismium. And you're like, I'm going to this washing.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to pronunciate it. So how do you say it?
It's washing. So just like washing your hands. It's washing cable, yes.
Cool. So you go to this washing, and the first thing I asked, I was like, are they a true manufacturer?
Right.
or are they a white label brand?
Correct.
Do you remember what you told me?
I don't.
You're like, as true manufacturer
Yeah.
as they come.
Yeah.
In fact, they make cable for some brands. I can't tell you because I'm under NDA,
Yep.
and I'm not going to repeat that here.
Yep.
But they are legit.
Yes.
And, you know, you go to our website and you start looking at the dimensions of the insulation diameter or the conductor diameter. You're like, holy cow.
It's exactly
washing
the same.
cable is this cable. And, you know, you're like, and people are buying this cable all the time.
Yep.
And now they have a direct source.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
it was a interesting thing in how it all came down to. I mean, I was kind of at an inflection point at Gray Bar. I was wanting to grow the company at a lot faster rate than they wanted to. And, you know, being someone that's always been driven by challenge, I felt like that I wasn't being challenged. I mean, they probably thought it was because we were growing at a high rate for them. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was more of like I felt like I was getting kicked in the teeth every day, right? And so how this all came about was one of our largest EPCs came to me and said, hey, Rob, I'd like you to attend a meeting with me at RE Plus with Washing Cable. And I'm like, okay, who's Washing Cable? And he says, you know, we have vetted them out. We've third-party tested them. We know their pricing. They're super aggressive, and we want Gray Bar to be set up with these guys.
okay.
I was like, bingo.
Okay, because my understanding was you were a big LS cable supporter at Gray Bar.
We were a supporter of everybody. I mean,
Okay.
Prismium, LS. I mean, it was kind of, you know, you got to remember that business is, when it gets in high dollars like that, it's hard to be locked in with anybody.
For sure.
Right? The commodity prices change. If they're holding old inventory, they may have a better price in the market.
Plus, it's the manufacturer's job to shine,
It is. It is.
not your job.
No.
Okay, so you go to this meeting. And
Yeah, so I go to this meeting, and this is when I met Jack Yang, CEO.
Okay.
And this is probably the thing that kind of sutured me into the deal was he was such a genuine, smart, like driven, passionate, and he literally lived and breathed the quality of his product. Like every time I talk to him, he talks about his quality. And I was like, man, this guy, you know, and then I learned a story. You know, his father started the company and built it. They brought it to the U.S. and obviously had some white labeling done here. And then he went to school here in North America and then wanted to grow the business directly into the U.S. market. So he put in a headquarters in Irvine, California. Mm-hmm. And so when I met him, like I said, I'm feeling all this energy from him, and I'm just like, and I basically became a consultant for him just because I liked him so much. Mm-hmm. And so after that meeting, I called him and I said, Jack, I think you have something very, very good here in this market. And because one, there's limited manufacturers, in the U.S. market, right? You have a high quality product, at least you say you do, and I believe you. And you have you've convinced a large EPC to buy from you, big deal. And I said, you need somebody who's Western, who knows the U.S. market at a very high level, knows all the EPCs, knows the MSA language, knows how to navigate the whole internal processes, everything. And I honestly wasn't even thinking it was me. I just said this to them, like in a conversation, like a 2-hour conversation. And then a week later, he calls me and says, Robert, I want you to be my VP of sales for U.S. and Canada. And then, like I said, I wasn't even thinking. I'm like, whoa. Then also I'm like, whoa. And so then I called the EPC, president of the company, and I said, hey, what do you think? And he said, Rob, at this point in your career, he's like, this is probably the best move for you. That's exactly what he told me. And so, you know, we talked for another week or two and kind of aligned on strategy. And one thing I love about Jack is he gives me full autonomy, lets me make all decisions. He supports me like no manager's ever supported me in my life, honestly. You know, there's a saying that says, be the manager you always wish you had. Yeah. And I never really had a good one, ever, honestly. You know, I mean, Steve Jobs said it, you know, when he was going through a hyper growth spurt in his company, he thought that he had to go hire all these managers, right? And what he quickly found out was high-performing people don't need to be managed. Right. And it's the truth. And I think it's a great thing for you as a young entrepreneur to understand, right? The high-performing people, they manage themselves. Yeah. They really do. I mean, everyone that's a high performer that I know of that's in distribution today, like from Gray Bar, I mean, the guy is, I mean, he's probably 1 or 2 largest salesperson in all of Gray Bar. He is a beast, and he does more in the shadows.
I need to hire this guy. Probably can't afford him.
He's way too expensive. But he's we grew up in the industry together. I mentored him a lot. Matter of fact, if he has an issue or wants to talk strategy, he always calls. Matter of fact, I talk to him 3-4 times a week, every week. I mean, for over 20 years.
Where's he out of?
He is out of California.
California. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But he's a beast, and there's we always send each other memes of stuff that me and him would only get about being in sales, right? Yeah. And it's funny, like he sent me 2 today. But
I want to be on those text messages.
Yeah, you would enjoy these, man. They're really funny. But I have the utmost respect for him and what he's built. He's done a tremendous job. His customers love him. I mean, I think he has 1, maybe 2 customers. He's just a beast.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
No, I remember when you made the move to washing. People were critical. I remember I heard a couple conversations in passing. I try really hard not to involve myself in any industry gossip. I really hate it. It's because people gossip about me. And it's freaking disgusting. I don't like it.
Yep.
But you're a high-profile individual in this industry. You've been around forever, and now all of a sudden he's going from director of renewables at Gray Bar to this Chinese cable manufacturer. And I remember people being leery. And I remember thinking, well, you've obviously never been to China, first of all, number one.
Glad you said that, by the way.
And you've never seen manufacturing in China because they are incredible at manufacturing. You got to realize they make almost everything we have here.
Yeah, people don't understand because I hear it all the time, like, oh, China junk, China cheap. And I always say, have you been to China?
Yeah.
Because China is so much further ahead than the United States. It's unbelievable.
Their manufacturing is incredible. They you know what they lack is the guardrails of safety. Because the OSHA type of environment.
You know why they do though, Mario? And I've been to our I've seen a lot of this, and actually we just had a CTL audit on our factory in the US, and we'll get into that. But it's because their people are trained so well that they don't need that stuff. Like when I bring it up to Jack, he laughs at it because it's not something they will do.
Wait, they have common sense.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to just go do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a different mentality. The culture is different. The family piece of that culture is amazing. What they do for their kids there. I mean, Jack he would die for his kids.
Yeah.
He would give his last penny for his kids. It's insane. I mean, he wants to send them to the best schools. He's had his first kid born here in the U.S., so he has dual citizenship, so he has the best chance of quality of life. He said he's having his next kid here in June. I mean, he does everything for his kids, and it's just I've learned. He always questions me. He's like, "So you're not going to pay for your daughter's first house?" He tells me. I'm like, no,
no
He's
way.
like, Chinese culture, that's what we do. I'm like, holy cow, man. It's a different deal there, man. That's interesting. But I've learned a ton from him. Like I said, tremendous leader. There's a difference between a manager and a leader. And I found myself, you get the most out of me when you lead me and when you motivate me. And you as a young entrepreneur, and you probably know this, what motivates one person doesn't motivate another person. And I learned this the hard way when I first got into management because I thought everybody was motivated like me. And it is the absolute garbage. That is not true.
Yeah.
But when you find someone that's like you, I mean, it's like sky's the limit. And, and when I was at Gray Bar, I actually had a couple people that I had hired 20 years different in age, but both of them beasts. And both of them
at Gray Bar right now.
Well, one of them left Gray Bar, went to work for another company, and then one of them's still there today.
Who's the one that's still there? Can I know?
Tammy's still there.
Tammy, you like Tammy a lot.
I liked her because she proved me wrong.
She's still posting about the Got Cable thing.
Yeah.
And Got Boss, and she's continued your marketing brand.
Well, one thing I love about Tammy is fantastic listener and accepts challenges. And so, like when I hired her, she was a coin flip for me. I got to be honest. And because one, she had no distribution experience, and I was bringing her into a high level job. Some
of those are the best.
I know, but typically it's tough to bring in someone like that to call on utility EPC though.
For sure,
it's a different game.
Yes,
right. And so I had this long conversation with her about it, And to her credit, she did everything like I would do it, like I told her to do it. And she has been hyper successful for doing that.
That's awesome.
She's tough to manage because she's so passionate about what she does.
Yeah.
But I will take that all day long, you know, than someone that mails it in and, you know, barely doesn't make numbers, and you're carrying them for 3 years, and then you got to put them on a PIP, and then you got to fire them, and then you got to rehire somebody. That's garbage, man.
Yeah.
I'd rather pay someone, if they're providing 5X the next person, I'm going to pay them 2-3X.
Yeah.
So that's my mentality.
Sure.
And that's the way the mentality, I think, should be, period. Right? Get what you give.
Yeah.
Right?
What else do you want to touch on?
You know, one of the things I think I told you on the way over here, I was like, okay, I got this podcast. What's going to come up? And you know, and I didn't come on here to plug anything, but you know, about 15 years ago, I started kicking around the idea of writing a book, and because like I said, I've seen so many people fail, and I never thought I was the best at anything. And like, okay, why have I been successful so many times? You know, after 30 years, you can look back and be like, okay, President's Clubs and growing these businesses and stuff. And, you know, what makes me different? And
by the way, whenever I read a book on sales or business, I actually don't like the books that are published by PhDs from universities.
Okay.
That interview like a million different people.
It's
and
true.
Like, I found this common denominator on the hyper successful people.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what I want to hear from that person, not from you.
Exactly. And I think
so. This is super cool. I can't wait to read it.
That's the reason I wanted to write this too, because I never seen a book from a distributor salesperson's point of view.
Yeah.
That it will really help that person at a high level. But also too, you know, people don't understand, you know, that if you look at, you know, they say the 80-20, 20% of the people produce 80% of the sales, right? Well, I look at it even different than that the top 2-3% are really the people that I kind of really want to walk the earth with, right? And so what this book goes into is how to train yourself in little ways to learn to become that. And one of the biggest things, and this is something that's said forever amongst you know, sales books, is listening, right? But the title of the book is called The Psychology of the Buyer. And what that goes into is that what I've seen people fail time and time again is what they think works at customer A is going to work at customer B. It's going to work at customer C. And it's not true. You have to fit yourself into whatever that buyer is, right? They could be 22 years old, right? Dropped out of college, single parent. I mean, you have to understand their makeup and to understand how they make their decisions. Right? What is their social makeup? Right? Especially, that's another thing I think I pride myself on is that I always try to, you know, be around young people. I know you got a lot of young people here. You're probably doing a lot of the same things. Is that, you know, they bring a lot of different energy. They bring a different insight. They bring different innovation. And so, you know, I try to listen to those people. Like last night when we were playing, you know, I was listening to Isaac. You know, he's got some good information that you don't want to just discount.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've kind of like taken that into the book, right? And so what I did is 15 years ago I had the idea, and obviously it takes a lot to write a book. And in fact, a lot of my family didn't even know I was writing it, and it was kind of a surprise. And I kind of formulated this outline by chapters, and I got it to a point where I thought it was very, very good, and enough to where I could fill in the chapters, but I had a fantastic outline. And I sent it to a buddy of mine, and he's like, Rob, he's like, this is amazing. He's like, you need to finish this, right? And so right now I'm in the final editing of it. I think I sent you I had the cover work done. I think I sent you a picture of it.
Yep.
And, you know, I'm really excited about it. And something that's, you know, for me, it's not about making money on it at all. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to sell it I may even give the proceeds away to a charity probably. Cool. On it. And, but you know, it's something that I want to do, and I'm glad I'm going to do it. It's not easy. It's especially when you have a full-time job and you have family, it's very difficult to do. And I've learned a lot of things about editing and proofreading, and, you know, where to buy your books, where to have them made, the laminate, the thickness of paper. I mean, all stuff that's foreign to me, right?
It's insane. Yeah.
And, but yeah, so we're close, and, I'm excited, and I hope that
how long is the
people
book?
enjoy it. It's it's around 320 pages. It's not that long. I did read about that and finding the sweet spot and kind of curtailed it a little bit to fit that, so someone can read it over a weekend.
Personal stories.
I did
life lessons.
I did some personal stories on the forward and then in the back of the book. More sort of the family stuff. Because my family has in some instances taken a lot of back seat to my career. Yeah. Right. And I think everyone I know that is hyper successful, I've seen their families and they're just like mine, but I will tell you this though, I've raised girls and they are, one's 28 now and one is 23 and I have a 16-year-old at home. I think they have the utmost respect for me though. Like they hold me to another level and I like that a lot, you know what I'm saying? And so they appreciate it, like my 28-year-old, when I wrote the Solar City National EBOS contract, she was struggling, a freshman in high school, and I brought it home and I wrote a whole outline. I made her sit right next to me. She saw me write the whole thing and put it all together and submit it. And then a year later, I get the call from Julie Graber that I got chosen for the 3-year national contract, which was at the time the largest EBOS contract in the country, and that was a big deal. That was and that was why I was at Wesco. But she saw that, right? And so like when certain people, even today, when some people say stuff about me, she's like, you don't know. You never saw my dad get up at 5 a.m. and iron his shirts. Like she'll call him out. And I was like,
love that.
Yeah, me too. I love it, dude. When she says things like that, I'm like, God.
What a girl. I love that. Man. So what is she doing now?
So she graduated college, and now she is a property manager of commercial property in L.A.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about your oldest? What is she doing?
That is my oldest.
Oh, so and then you have your middle?
My middle is director of youth services at a church.
Very cool.
She graduated college too. She went to a Christian university in Florida.
Nice.
And then the one at home wants to be a anesthesiologist nurse. That's what she wants to be. Make a lot of money. And that's what she wants to do. The joke at home is that she's going to be the most successful in the family.
They do make a lot of money.
Because she's kind of seen, my oldest made a lot of mistakes, right? 6 years to graduate college, right? Partied her butt off, right? Admits it, right? And then my middle child saw all the mistakes she made, and she graduated college in 3.5 years, right? And is goody two-shoe, church girl, great kid, fantastic kid. And then I got McKenna, and she just wants to, make a lot of money.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna
send me a proof.
Actually, you're on the initial copy list, so I've got about 12 people that are getting initial copies.
I'll buy it. And here's the deal: friends should always pay full price. That's my take on that.
I believe that, especially in my career of selling solar to residential. If you
Enough with the discounts for friends and family. Give me a break. There's the ones supporting you.
Yeah. How many houses I've done for no charge? It's insane.
No. Yeah, I bet.
Oh my God. Pain.
That's pretty awesome. So washing.
Yeah.
This is your next thing for the foreseeable future. You've been a year in.
Yep.
You guys have cracked the market, which is super hard. Chinese cable. It's like, come here, 50, 60-year-old white American male, and let me change your mind about why you should change from general cable, Prismium, Okanite, Southwire to washing.
Right.
Or you go from AWG, WTech, direct sale, highly availability to washing, right? So those are the two verticals you're fighting.
Yeah.
What's it been like?
Yeah, great question, by the way. So the way I look at the market is that the market's big, right? And we're just looking for a portion of the market. Yeah. We're not looking to take Southwire's business, Prismi's business, General's business. They've done a great job. They can have their business. That's fine. Ultimately, it's up to the customer to make a decision, right? And so if I can put in front of them a high quality product at a very good price with great lead times, and we stand behind our product, then we should be able to compete in the market. And that's really all we ask, right? And that's really all Jackass. And it's been the first year, like to your point, I mean, get through the MSA, NDAs, MSAs, quality reports, all this stuff, AVLs, right? And, just recently and I think I told you last night, we got CTL audit certification for our factory in China, which is massive. We had a massive the largest developer in the U.S. come to us and say, we need you to be CTL audited.
We talked about this when you first started.
Yeah.
How that was going to be key.
Yeah. And it was a long process, Mario. It took us probably 5 months to get it, which looking back looks like a short time, but when you're trying to build a company, it's a long time. But we finally got it. And we are the first Chinese manufacturer to have a North American certification on our factory.
Very cool.
And CTL is the number one cable engineering certification firm in the U.S. So, I mean, it's a big, big deal. And I mean, there are companies here in the U.S. that don't even have CTL.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it just solidifies everything that I believe in Jack and his priorities of his manufacturing company. Right. Quality is first. And it's been a great ride. And I feel like we're kind of at that. And I think I told you that tipping point where we're starting to get a lot of traction. We've got a CRM, so we know we're getting a ton of asks for the product, so we know the market wants it. And now we're at the point we're on AVLs, and now we're at the point where we're really, I mean, the last, I would say some of Q3, Q4, Q1 of this year, we're really starting to get our stride going.
Yeah. Earlier today, you said, and you looked at me and said, you got to listen to this. Sometimes being a slow second is better than a fast first.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of that in your current customers.
Yeah, there is.
They're kind of sitting on the sidelines. They're watching. They talk to you. They know you.
Yeah. I mean, the fortunate thing for me is
cracking.
Yeah. The fortunate thing with me is I do have a reputation in the market. Yeah. And it was easier for me to get to the front of the line, right? But you still got to get through MSAs, and you got to get through, the Chinese portion of it, and quality certifications and all this other AVLs, right? Just kind of roadblock after roadblock. Yeah. But once you get past those, we think we have a viable enough product to really, make some damage in the market. Yeah. And I think that this is going to be our breakout year for sure.
I'm excited to see it. I'm cheering for you.
I know you are, Martin. You know what? I have to say this. I mean, since we're on the podcast now, but you have been one of the few true supporters of Washington from the beginning, and I deeply appreciate that, because we also had a conversation last night about, when you do successful things, it's amazing when you look back and some of the people who you thought were your closest people want to see you fail. Yeah, and it's true. It's true. I mean, I know people who think highly of me, and they're like, oh, I don't know, he should make that move, or he should have done that, or blah blah blah. I don't really care. That's just noise. Yep. Right. And you're an entrepreneur. You know this more 100%. Than anybody else. Cool, you're on an island. Yeah. Right. And so the way I look at myself is that as long as I'm pointed in a direction, I've got the right strategy and the right plan, I know I can execute. Yeah. Right. And so we're just executing right now.
I'm pumped. I think, except for the occasional name joke, I always go, whoosh, and pull out the sword.
Yeah. But I think the branding of it has gotten better and better over there. I mean, I think you would agree.
I do. Yeah. I do. And you guys have done a really good job moving from the Asian Chinese marketing to
Western marketing,
American, like high quality, highly technical.
And that's Jack's credit. Jack's done all that, man.
And I think he's smart enough, and I don't know him, but I think he's been smart enough to lean in, and trust you with some of that. And so kudos to 2 ears and 1 mouth,
Agreed.
Right? That's the
because I mean, how many times have you talked to a CEO and they're literally not even listening to you? Yeah. Right. I mean, I get his full attention. Sure. I mean, you got to remember, this guy's running a massive company. I mean, we're selling tons overseas. I mean, Enel is Washington's #1 customer worldwide. Enel. I mean, everybody knows who they are. I know. For the last 10 years, our largest customer. Right. So, I mean, he has this massive business, and he gives me a ton of attention, and we're just starting. Right. And so I'm just like, man, that's how bad he wants this, though. He really wants the U.S. market, and I love that. I drive energy from that.
So, last plug in as a sale. So, Washington, if you're a top 50 EPC or a top 5 renewables distributor.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like a sample cable pack that you can
ship
out, or what do you guys do for that?
Yeah. So in our office, and a great question, by the way, in our office in Irvine, we have samples that we can send out.
Cool.
And believe it or not, early on, people wanted samples, and I haven't gotten a request in probably 6 months. I mean, the last sample we sent, actually, I'm under NDA because I can't talk about it, but it's a very large OEM company here in the U.S. for, I won't go any further than that. But anyways, they asked for some samples, and of course, it's for testing, obviously.
Sure.
But I mean, yeah, we don't really get requests for. I mean, I've sent you samples.
Yep, I've seen it.
anytime
I've worked on it.
Yeah,
feels great.
yeah.
It's great.
And we've actually
Medium
had
voltage cable.
Yeah, we've had employees do the stripping and terminating on our cable, and they gave it high praise, because that's something I think that people don't understand is, when you talk to these splicers, it's the procurement guys, all they care about is price.
Yeah.
Right. And when you talk to a director of procurement or maybe even a CFO, they look at it as a bigger picture, more pipeline. Okay, how do we drive this to pipeline instead of a project by project? But really, cable is a lot like solar racking, right? Where the installer has a bigger influence you think, because those guys are very, very high paid. And if they're struggling with stripping cable in the field and they're getting paid $100, $150 an hour, and to put a termination on, that's lost wages. That's lost labor.
Yeah,
right?
It matters.
And so Jack has done a tremendous job in the technical aspect of making sure that, we're still abiding by UL and everything, but how we can get that sheeting off in a timely fashion. It doesn't separate. It separates from the copper. Concentrics fine, doesn't bundle up. I mean, we've seen, terrible quality out there that customers have shown us. But
I've seen it.
I know everybody has, but
American made. There was a brand last year. They were taking off the semiconductive layer of the insulation. There's all this residue left on there.
Yeah.
They had to sand it. It was a gigantic mess.
Yeah.
The EPC that was working with us,
but it's always something that you just don't. It's the stuff that you don't think of, and that's why I wanted to take it to some splicers and get their hands on. Let them say, have a say, and hey, you know what? This washing cable did really, really good job in the field, and that's why I now go out to all our job sites when they're pulling our cable, and I want to know how their terminations are going. I want to know how the pool is going, how it comes off the reels, if it's set up correctly. I was at a big job site last week in Arizona, and they had nothing but great. And one thing I love is that when you meet with these superintendents of job sites, because I've been to job sites for all my career, is I give them tips on what I've seen on other job sites, and this was a newer EPC, and they would just love the information, right, and because these are longtime electrician guys, which is kind of my background too, right? Which really the electrical part of my background has really helped me in this business, because I have that renewable and electrical background. Yeah. And then they want to talk switchgear, we can really get in the weeds.
Yeah, you've been good to us also. Actually, recently, we just closed with an EPC you sent our way.
Awesome, man.
Did I tell you about that?
No.
Yeah, we got our first orders. And
awesome, dude.
So it's been awesome.
Well, I believe in, a lot of times, Mario, what you find is, people want you to pay them for information. And I've never been that person, right? And I try to surround myself with people who I respect and who I like. And I have that for you. I had it early on. If I could help your business, I would do that, because guess what? I know from someone like you, it comes back to me.
100%.
And I also know what's even better is that you will say my name in conversations I'm not in. And to me, that's more important than anything else. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate you having. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
No, I appreciate this time. I appreciate you having me here. Utah's been great. And it's actually, when I was thinking about leaving California, this was on my top 3 list of places, because I spent so much time here 15 years ago. The summers here are just ridiculous. I mean, your guys' views and
summer's
golf.
Cool.
I mean, it's just beautiful here.
You're going to play some golf this week.
I'm playing tomorrow with an EPC, yes.
Nice.
So I'm pretty excited. Actually, golf course recommendation you made, so thank you.
It's going to be awesome. Well, thanks for coming.
Hey, thank you for having me.
We'll see ya.
See you, buddy.